Welcome to the Relevance Rapport, where we sit down with global industry leaders who are driving impact and shaping the future. Today, we sit down with William Drew, who is the content director for the world's 50 best restaurants and the world's 50 best bars. He's a tastemaker in every sense of the word. Welcome to the show, William Drew.
I'm very good, Suzanne. It's lovely to see you. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, our pleasure. So where are you right now?
I'm in my house in England, in the UK, in the county of Kent, which is about an hour south of London, in the beautiful countryside.
Oh, nice. Are you getting good weather yet, or is it still?
No, of course not. This is England. So we just had a holiday weekend, a long weekend, and the wind blew and the rain came down, and it was very British.
Lovely. Well, I know a lot of our listeners probably know of you from the world's 50 best restaurants and the world's 50 best bars, and know of you in the culinary world, the foodie world, hospitality circles. And I was surprised to learn that your background actually, it's a little bit interesting. It didn't start out that way. Can you tell us a little bit about your story for the listeners?
Sure. I mean, I'm a journalist by trade. That's my background. But I started out as a journalist working in the world of fashion. So the only reason I worked in fashion was because I happened to land a job on a business to business, a trade title in the fashion and retail sector. God knows how I got it, but I was a trainee reporter on this business magazine in fashion, and that led from one thing to another. I worked in fashion and then in lifestyle magazines for many years. So it led on to various lifestyle magazines. And yeah, my friends all thought that was hilarious because they didn't think I was particularly fashionable. But no, I got it. I had a great time. It was a really interesting area. It's obviously a very serious and big business, fashion and retail for sure. So there was, I learned a lot about how to be a journalist, but I also had some fun too because the parties are always really good.
Oh, I'm sure you missed the parties. Although you throw some good parties yourself. The world's 50 best restaurants.
We do.
It doesn't get much better than that. And you get to eat the most amazing food in the world. So how's that? You just traveling and eating great food? I mean, that's what it seems like from afar.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes say that my career path has followed my own interests. So when I was young, I wanted to go to parties and have a wild time. Now I'm much more interested in eating well and drinking nice wine. So as I've got older into this is what happens. So I've managed to move my career into food and drink and travel, and rather than fashion and lifestyle and so forth. But in all seriousness, look, I'm really lucky that I love my job and I do get to travel quite a lot, but my job is not, contrary to popular belief, based around traveling the world, eating in the best restaurants. It's a byproduct that I get a bit of that. I do get a bit of that, and more than most. So I'm not complaining in any way. But we have 1,000 voters around the world who create the list of the world's best restaurants, and similarly for the world's 50 best bars. And they're the ones who are experts in their fields, in their different regions. We as the organizers, we don't vote. We just organize it all. But of course, we put on various awards events in different parts of the world, and that does give us an opportunity to travel in usual times. Obviously, not in the last 18 months or so.
And in the downturn, you were working a lot on trying to help the struggling hospitality industry. I know that you were really imperative to leading the 50 Best for Recovery. Can you talk to the listeners a little bit about that program?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I guess like the rest of the world in sort of March, April last year, we were, had a big pause and a big, right, what do we do here? And not only looking at ourselves, but what can we do to help others? We feel that we're a sort of intrinsic part of the global hospitality community. That's part of who we are and where we work, obviously. And the global hospitality community was suffering immediately. That was pretty obvious. But similarly, restaurants around the world and bars around the world were also trying to help others. And we took a lead from that, and we were like, okay, what can we do? Because we're in the business of international events and encouraging people to travel for food and drink, and all that was off the table, quite understandably. It quickly became clear that wasn't viable. So what could we do? What strengths could we use as an organization to help others and to support the hospitality industry? So, we have this global network. We're, a global organization with this network around the world, and we have a lot of good relationships with both commercial brands who are our sponsors, but also with the chefs and the bar owners and so forth around the world. Mm-hmm. So we sought to use that to raise funds for the hospitality sector, as well as provide advice online and support for those in need and looking for resources to help them navigate through the pandemic and through the huge complications around closures and restrictions and funding and negotiating with landlords and all that tough stuff that went on last year, for sure. Mm-hmm. So with the aid of our partners and with the aid of very generous donations from chefs donating experiences, money couldn't usually buy type experiences where you go hang out, spend a day or a few days, with a chef who takes you around the producers or his region or the marketplaces, maybe teaches you to cook some of his dishes, and then you get the incredible experience in the restaurants themselves. We set up an auction of those experiences. We published an e-cookbook with recipes from some of the world's best chefs, home recipes, called Home Comforts. And all in all, we managed to raise $1.3 million that we could distribute to hospitality businesses in need, or to some non-profit organizations that were feeding those most in need in the community. But that we were just kind of coordinating that. It came with the massive support of others, and so that was something we could do to help the hospitality community as we were seeking to battle through that period in 2020, and hopefully in 2021. Although that's by no means over, of course, we are beginning to see some light and some potential for travel, and certainly some more potential for eating out than there was last year.
Well, it's incredible how you were leading the charge in this really dark time. And I know that, everyone was looking for help and support. And I think, you really rallying the people who follow you, all the major restaurateurs and, bar owners, they needed that community, and you provided a lot of support. So that was really, really well done. Can we talk a little bit about what you're working on now? I know, we're all coming out of this hopefully soon, little by little, and you don't sit still for a minute, I know. So what's next? Can you give us a little scoop?
We have a few different things, but I mean, we just published a list called 50 Next. 50 Next is a brand new initiative that was actually been in the pipeline for a little while. And it's 50 young people shaping the future of gastronomy. It's a list of people, unranked, rather than the restaurants or bars list, which are ranked and famously from 50 down to 1. But this is about 50 individuals who are doing amazing things in the wider world of food and drink, and effectively the future shapers. So we're really proud of that initiative. It just launched last month, and we'll hope to continue for many years. But the class of 2021, as we call it, is 50 Next, is now been announced and published, and you can catch up with that online on World's 50 Best Restaurants. And upcoming, we've just announced the plans for the World's 50 Best Restaurants 2021. The return. Let's call it the return.
Yay!
So in 2020, we were unable to, for obvious reasons, hold a big ceremony or a series of events that we usually do that culminates in an awards ceremony, the Oscars of the food world, as it's sometimes called. We were unable to do that in 2020. We didn't publish that list at all. We didn't feel that it was appropriate. But in 2021, we want to do that once again. We're going to aim to do that in October, hosted in the city of Antwerp in Flanders, the northern part of Belgium, in Northwest Europe. And we're very excited to try and bring as many people from the global gastronomic community whether they be media, food lovers, food writers, chefs, of course, together again where possible. Obviously, safety and guidelines will be strictly adhered to, but we really think there's an appetite for people to get together again, having spent so long not being able to get together in any live way, too much time on screens. Delighted I am to be on a screen with you. So we want to do that, and we're going to build up to that over the coming months with various initiatives, including another new initiative called Champions of Change, which seeks to again find some individuals that have been done extraordinary things over the period of the pandemic, or accelerated by the situation of the last 18 months or so. And we're going to highlight some of those local heroes in the build up to the world's 50 best restaurants list and the event program that surrounds that later in the year.
I love that you're recognizing those champions of change. That's incredible. And you're definitely not only recognizing those leaders, but yourself assuring about a lot of positive change for the industry. And I wanted to ask you, what causes do you personally care about? And when it comes to not only what you're doing with World's 50 Best, but just as a person, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think the fact that you're so proactive in talking about positive change and recognizing those leaders is you personally care about what's going on in the world, just from hearing you speak on other things.
Of course, and I don't think you can work in the world of food and drink and not care about a lot about the changes there. I'd love to see a more accessible, socially accessible, racially accessible, and in terms of gender as well, industry. I think the hospitality sector has been dominated by white males in the sort of elite part of that world, and I'd like to see that develop and change. As part of that, you want to see a change in the culture in many kitchens and bars, so that there's a positive, accepting and professional culture, because some of those areas have not been as professionalized perhaps in the past. But I also think there's food crosses borders, and sometimes that's might be considered a cliche, but it's a really important one. If the food has no borders, and it has the ability to create understanding, be a cultural ambassador for different regions, and for us all to understand culture, the history, the people of different parts of the world that perhaps we've just been ignorant of before, and that can feed into prejudice and so forth. So I think food can be a really positive force globally, and we need to keep pushing. We need to keep encouraging that food is a positive force in lots of ways.
I heard from a little bird you might be launching some new lists of some new. Tell me a little bit, something about new lists and new regions. I don't know.
Yeah, we are looking at new lists in new regions. I can't tell you any more than that at the moment, because we haven't announced anything. But we think that 2022 and beyond, there's room for more exploration of more regions globally, or more highlighting of more regions on a global scale. So that's not us just from a Western point of view, sort of exploring different parts of the world. It's trying to shine a more of a global spotlight or floodlight on more regions, more different cuisines, more different cultures, more different drinks as well. And that that creates new conversations. It creates more new connections as well, because one of the things that 50 Best has done over the years is bring people together from different parts of the world, sometimes literally, to meet, and then share ideas and share experiences, and then collaborate and so forth. So we hope to do more of that. But yeah, watch this space.
Great. What trends are you seeing now?
Well, interesting and very topically, 11 Madison Park, as you may have seen over the weekend,
Yes.
New York's most high-profile restaurant perhaps has just announced that it's going to go 100% plant-based when it reopens in June. That is really important and really significant, because moves from being a trend towards more plant-based, people looking at that a bit more. But when a restaurant like that makes that kind of statement, and I have no doubt he will, but if a chef like Daniel Humm can show or demonstrate that you're not missing out by going to that restaurant and having a 12-course tasting menu, and you might be paying $300+ for that, but you're not missing out because there's not meat or meat products or seafood in that menu. If he can demonstrate that sets and sends a new message out to the world, to chefs and restaurateurs, that this is not a specialist niche area,
Right.
and to diners that it's not something either you have to pay less for, or that means you only go to if you're with your vegan friend, or if you're a vegan, or that this is just as delicious, and in turn that's what will help us eat less meat as a society, and that's obviously beneficial, as we all know, for the planet. So I think that's an obvious but really, really important trend that we're seeing. But I also see in the food and drink world more personalization, more casual but no less professional service styles, more flexibility. I mean, I think the pandemic has shown that the restaurant and chef world is super flexible. They don't just this is what we're going to give you, and this is how we're going to serve it. Everything should be adjusted, and for the individual, and for any individual moment and any individual's needs and wants.
Yeah, absolutely. So Will, what are some trends that you really love, and what are some trends that you could live without?
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. Things I'm loving are, related to my last answer, are that vegetables are not being seen as a side issue. Also very much in the cooking world, cooking over fire, which is super traditional, perhaps the oldest of all cooking methods, is not just about meat or seafood. It's about all sorts of ingredients can have the amazing flavors, and different flavors imbued by cooking over fire, and different woods and different smokiness. So that's something that I love to see, and we're seeing more of. And that when you say cooking over fire, it doesn't mean always meat, and I think that's kind of important. What else? What trends would I love to see the back of? I've got to say that I would like to see less focus on Instagram as a sort of force in food, but in society as a whole as well. And I don't mean to pick on that channel in particular, but I just feel like honest human interaction can sometimes get dominated by perhaps not as genuine images that we put out about ourselves or we see of others, and that's not necessarily as real. I think that can be a problem. Of course, it's an important marketing tool for all of us, sometimes for some people personally, but professionally, and it can have positive communication, but it has a little bit of a dark side that I'd like to see it less power. Its power be diluted somewhat.
Well, I think everyone feels that way, honestly, William, because it's a necessary evil at the moment. You have to be there, but I don't know that everyone is truly feeling it's an authentic medium to experience, a real person or a brand, or, in this case, you're trying to really translate a restaurant experience or some sort of bar experience through that channel, and it's not at all the same as being there and having the real atmosphere and meeting the people behind it. So as a storyteller, which you are as well, William, I think it's our job to really find ways around that, because I know you've been writing for 25 years, and you are truly a storyteller. That's what you are. And translating content and figuring out the best way to make that story resonate with whoever it is that we're trying to connect with. And I also feel the same way. So my recommendation to anybody trying to deal with noticing that Instagram isn't serving its purpose in that manner is, okay, that story maybe doesn't belong on Instagram. There's another way.
Yeah.
So we're finding a lot more, a lot more video like we're doing right now, where you can actually hear someone talk more authentically and from the heart about things. And, one picture of a beautiful plate is just, it's not going to cut it. Right. So,
and isn't it interesting to see the rise in popularity of podcasts? I mean, I know we're involved in one now, but I don't think anyone, not anyone, but I don't think any of us predicted quite the extraordinary scale and rise in popularity overall. And why is that? It's kind of long form, which goes against this, the social media trends. They tend to be longer discussions. It's in person, and it's a genuine interaction and not a very studied and carefully curated image or even message you're putting out there. It's much more real, and people understand that, they get that, and that's why they like it. So even even whether they be edited or so forth, it's very popular, and people respond to that in some ways much more, at a much deeper level than they do just with some of the platforms that we have.
Absolutely. And the social media posts that we're seeing do very well in terms of engagement are more behind the scenes when it's not so perfect. So showing how it's not so perfect all the time and what really happened, having a real authentic interaction. I mean, that is what people want. Even a blooper will do better than the perfectly polished clip. And so it's just a reminder that we're all human and nobody's perfect. And, we all try to make things look great because you're trying to keep up with a certain aesthetic, which Instagram has perpetuated. However, we all really have to come back. The pendulum swings back the other way to authenticity again and again, and it always will. So what drives you, Will? I feel like you're constantly innovating, propelling forward. I'm curious, what drives you?
Oh gosh. I just want to, I'm curious. It goes back to why I became a journalist in the first place. I'm curious about the world. And actually in a previous life, I briefly taught some journalism to young graduate journalists. And the biggest message I tried to get across to them is you've got to be questioning about the world. Not that doesn't have to be in a negative way or a intrusive way. It's just being curious. You got to be interested in the world, interested in people, interested in what's going on, and the whys and the motivations and who's doing what. And that curiosity sort of stays with you, and it keeps you looking for what's new and interesting and what's changing, not staying still too long, because the world's moving fast. So I think I want to be interested. And I'm really lucky in that the job I've done for the last, all the jobs I've done, all the various jobs I've done, but certainly in the last 10 years working in the world's 50 best, it's changed a lot, it's developed a lot, it's got a lot bigger. And that's kept it extraordinarily interesting. The food world's a fascinating place, food and drink world. It's fascinating. It's always changing. There's a lot going on. And there are some nice benefits of eating some great food at the same time. So I've loved that. I've been really fortunate. But I think you've got to keep looking for what's new and interesting and exciting.
Well, you're certainly doing a great job at that. I'm curious what you're excited about manifesting next.
Well, I'm really excited about the new projects we have, but I also want to see that restaurant world changing and taking stock from the pause that we've all had, the pandemic, the chance that everyone has had to take stock and rethink, and and now hopefully reconnect with people again and what matters and what's really. And I really want to be part of that positive change going forward in the food and drink world, and for our organization to continue to sort of drive new discussions around it as well. The lists we create are really important in bringing attention to the world, but in themselves, they're kind of a device for us to talk about other things, talk about what's changing, what's new, what can be better, and give other great voices and the truly innovative voices in the food and drink world a platform, so that they can be heard around by others, to do great and interesting things.
Yeah, you're really championing learning across borders and furthering the industry quite a bit. So that's amazing. Do you have any final thoughts? I've really enjoyed the chat today, and I just didn't know if you want to leave our listeners with any final thoughts from you.
My final thoughts. Well, I don't want to repeat myself, but I think the chance for anyone to open their mind to new dishes, new tastes, new textures, and not, our instinct is often to dismiss things because we don't know them. Whether that be a taste, a texture, a drink, something that's unfamiliar. Our instinct is often to say no, and I think sometimes, and maybe I've learned this as I've got older, that you've got to open your mind a little bit, and through that small opening of the mind, even if it's something that you're tasting, you're putting in your mouth, that can really help open your mind in a bigger way. So I'm using food as I'm advocating using food as a great way of opening your mind, and you being curious and open to other ideas and new ideas and fresh concepts.
That's a great way to put it. And also, as a side note, I'm going to use that same clip and I'm going to show it to my kids so that they're open to trying new foods. And I'm going to say, look, William Drew said, you got to open your mind. Let's try it. And who knows, maybe they'll become more adventurous, and we all should learn from that.
Yeah, you need someone else to tell them, because if mom or dad say that, then they tend to just resist more.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure, and I really hope we talk again soon, William. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks for having me. Great to talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.